Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. First news story, Anthony Weaver had his first defensive press conference. There was a couple interesting things that I wanted to talk about that he said in the press conference. I'm sure everybody's watched that is listening to the show. But I just wanted to... There's like a couple things that I thought were interesting. One, where he was very excited to work with Christian Wilkins. Doesn't necessarily mean the Dolphins are going to sign him, but it was like the first time a personnel member has said something like that. So maybe he let that slip, and that's something that they talked about in his interview. And obviously, they asked him again in the press conference, do you think he'll be here? He ends up saying, he goes on to say that he hopes so. But I thought that was interesting that he said that. I think, some people that also, I don't know, who knows how much, you could look into that. But like I said, it was the first time anybody has really said anything like that. Another thing that he said that I thought was interesting is, well, there was two other things. Number one, he mentioned Wink Martindale a lot. So maybe we can kind of take from that. That's kind of what the defense is going to be a little bit. I mean, he's been under a lot of different defensive coordinators that are aggressive coordinators, like obviously Wink and Rex Ryan and McDonald last year, who was more of I would say he was more conservative and did a lot of disguising, which he's played a lot under and coached under a lot of coaches that are famous for disguising, like Rex Ryan and McDonald last season. So, he talked about that in the press conference about how he wants to be multiple and really tailored to the players. So it's going to be interesting to see what this defense looks like. And I'm really excited about that. Now, granted, you guys got to remember, I mean, it took 2 years for the Ravens to look like that. I mean, the first season that McDonald was there, it did not look as good as the second season. A lot of that had to do with they had a lot of young players in key positions that were developing, and then obviously Roquan Smith didn't really get there until I think midway through, and then they really took off. So it still might take some time, unfortunately, for the team to kind of gel because it is a new system. But he did say he wants to tailor it to his players, which is a good thing. It's not a set system like it was last season or even with Josh Boyer. That's what Brian Flores is really good at, is tailoring the defense to his players. It's one of the reasons we turned his rookie coaching seasons, one of the reasons we had a really good November and December and won some games that we should not have won. And so, it's good to hear stuff like that. So overall, I was pretty happy with and I said this on last week's episode, but very similar to Mike McDaniel. Obviously he's not, cracking jokes in the press conferences, but very upbeat, very positive dude. And obviously those two were around the same age and coached together before, so this is a good marriage between the two of them. And he's got a lot of experience and a lot of valuable time under some really successful defensive coordinators. And he comes from the Ravens school, not only when he played, but obviously coached there for 3 years. So there's a lot of things to like about him. And I'm pretty excited about the whole situation. We were excited about Vic too, and then things went south on that one. But like I said, things never really felt right with him. For the reasons that we've all read. Clearly he didn't want to be in Miami. But we'll move on from that. What else did I want to bring up? There was a news story. Oh, here it is right here. This comes from ESPN and a bunch of other places. I'm sure you guys have seen this, but Joe Klatt, Fox Sports is a college football analyst, did his first mock draft, and he had the Miami Dolphins selecting Michael Penix, which started an uproar. But then again, I would have loved to know, out of all the dumb Dolphins draft picks that I've witnessed in my life, there's two that come to mind that are the worst. and that's Deion Jordan. We should have picked Lane Johnson. And then the other one is TJ Watt, who I really wanted to pick that year. It was one of my favorite players that was coming out that season. And then we had picking Chris Harris. And we all know how those things worked out. Not good. So I've seen a lot of stupid picks. Would this be one of those dumb picks? No, I don't think it would be. He's a really talented player, has a lot of upside. He's had, obviously, the national championship game kind of looked ruffled a little bit, which isn't great. He didn't necessarily rise to the occasion like some other great players you've seen in the past, which kind of makes you nervous a little bit. But he is very talented. He has a ton of injuries throughout his career, clearly. Everybody knows that. But he does fit the system. Very big. How big is Michael? He's very big. I want to get this exactly right. Sometimes I look at players and they're like, Jalen Waddle does not look 5. I swear to God, he looks bigger than that. Michael Penix is how tall? Oh my God, this is great start. But the point I'm trying to make is that it wouldn't be the worst pick in the world. He's 6'3", so he's only an inch taller than Tua. He just seems like a lot bigger than Tua is for whatever reason. I think Tua's weight is listed at 6'1". Yeah, 6'1", so he's barely taller. But he's a bigger quarterback. And I don't know. Like I said, I don't think it was that. A lot of people reacted to that poorly. But again, not one of the worst picks if it happened. I understand why they would do it. I get it. And I think we all kind of would get it. I don't think it's that crazy. I think there's a Dolphins fan alive that would hand Tua that much money. And feel like 100% confident about it, I would say. And honestly, out of all of the alternatives, whether that be Justin Fields or some people have suggested Kirk Cousins, this one would be the best one. Tua is, people forget, the man is under contract. So we could have both of them. And I know that Omar Kelly said in one of his podcasts, or that was kind of clipped out, everybody saw if you're a Dolphins fan, he said that, the Dolphins, there's no way they would have a quarterback competition. But who knows, what they would do. He's been wrong before. Omar Kelly's not the all-seeing eye. So, again, wouldn't be the worst pick in the world if they did it. And honestly, I think it's a better alternative than some of the other things that they could do. Now, the draft is going to be really interesting. I like a lot of players in this draft. Like I've said before, I think it's a very deep and talented draft. Really love the first round and the possibilities. I love I always forget his name, but he's one of my favorite players in the draft. The UCLA pass rusher, who I love to death. I think he's gonna be that guy's gonna be really good. And Brock Bowers, obviously, I think would be a phenomenal pick. There's a couple linemen that I like. The O-lineman that the Dolphins get selected that spot. So, a lot of potential for major improvement because of how it depends on who Chris picks, obviously, but there's a lot of talent there. So we could definitely go in the right direction. Other people have suggested that he might go in the second round, Penix, which I don't know. Things change by the time the draft gets here, and drastically, almost every single time. And mock drafts are rarely right. So who knows? But again, not the worst pick in the world. Wouldn't lose my mind over it. This next news story comes from. It's not next news, so I don't know why I said that. I got sidetracked with thinking about Tua. I still like Tua. I still think he has potential to do it, but I would feel more comfortable not giving him the deal, and if it was me, I would just have him play out the year. If it was me, but it's not me running the organization. So, also another name I would look out for is J.J. McCarthy. And I know that a lot of people have heard that name, but if he was in the second round, excuse me, I don't know. Stephen Ross is a Michigan guy. We all know that. I don't know. I just have a feeling about that for whatever reason. I was thinking about that the other day. I just have a weird feeling about that. Anyway, I wanted to break down my favorite free agents and who I think. And again, some of these are guys who are like pie in the sky. Especially the last two that I wrote down. I don't think necessarily these are needs, but they would make the team better. And I don't think the Dolphins would have the want to and I don't think they would do it because of their philosophy anyway. With these last two names, with some of these other guys, I think would fill holes, like huge holes on the roster, and would be huge upgrades. So we'll start with the first guy on my list. One of my favorite players in the NFL, even though he's a New England Patriot. I think everybody really wants him who's a Dolphins fan. Kyle Duggar. We know that there's a huge need at safety next to Javon Holland. Brandon Jones, he was kind of up and down, didn't look the same after the injury. But God, I'm literally forgetting the man's name right now. I might be losing, like, memory loss might have hit me, everybody. Deshaun Elliott. I've said it thousands of times, but he's awful, so it would be nice to get someone who has great instincts, great against the run, phenomenal in coverage, and is a perfect complement to Javon Holland. He's a great playmaker, very multiple in what he can do, great athlete, big safety too, and he just has great instincts, and that's what you really need at that spot. And I would go if we got Kyle Duggar, I would be the happiest person on the planet. I love his game. I love what he could bring to the Dolphins, and I think would be a massive upgrade at that position. Great ball skills too, and like Javon, I think that's the good thing is that he just has a great feel for the game, and the safety position, out of all positions, if you have good ones that they can, out of any position on defense, probably other than maybe middle linebacker, you have opportunity for the most turnovers. I think safety, like I said, out of all positions, has the most opportunity for turnovers because of the nature of the position and where you line up. Tips and overthrows, whatever your coach says all the time. Well, usually safeties are in the vicinity of that. So I think all of those things would elevate the defense to even greater heights, and I think we would have way less not only communication issues, but just busted coverages, which was a huge problem last year. And we really don't know what Anthony Weaver is going to do on defense, but if he runs more of the zone McDonald multiple system rather than the Wink Martindale very man coverage heavy system, then Duggar might not be the guy that you would want necessarily. And there's another guy on the list that I have that I think would fit that scheme better. But I think if you're going more of a multiple defense, some two deep looks, a lot of two deep looks, shifting to two deep, bringing someone in the box, having them run out, I think that Duggar fits that perfectly. This next name is not necessarily someone that I love, but I think has a high probability of being a Dolphin because of Anthony Weaver being our coach, Geno Stone. Every time a new coach is hired, they usually bring someone in from their old team that can set the tone and really help everybody mesh well and get the defense running as fast as possible because everybody's learning it for the first time. And Geno Stone fits that. Obviously had a career season last year with the Baltimore Ravens, and I need to watch more Geno Stone. I definitely have not seen his games as much as someone like a Kyle Duggar. But Geno Stone, great ball skills. He seems, he was a great tackler. He played in a multiple defense where he had to move a lot. He's a good cover guy, too. He can cover well in man-to-man coverage. So he can do a lot of different things and would definitely help. And I think there's a high likelihood that he would be a Dolphin just because the familiarity with the scheme, and he's obviously going to try to help. The 1,000% a Raven is going to be a Dolphin. I don't know who it's going to be, but it definitely could be someone like Geno Stone. And he definitely is a upgrade over Deshaun Elliott, that's for sure. The crazy thing is I have, let me count. I have 4 safeties on this list, which is crazy. Because I was thinking, is it really that bad? And this was like, I did not intentionally put 4 safeties on here. I think it's a combination of the fact that the free agent market for safeties is really good. And I really like a lot of these players. And Deshaun Elliott was just terrible. So it's kind of nice because there's a couple. This class really fits what the Dolphins. This free agency class really fits what the Dolphins need, which is interesting. This isn't a guy that will not be a Dolphin. But I wanted to put him on here anyway because he's such a great player and would fit the scheme perfectly. Who also plays safety, Antoine Winfield Jr. Everybody knows how good he is. He's one of the best players in the NFL. He's a top 3 safety in the NFL. He's gonna set the market at the position. There's no way he's gonna be a Dolphin. But I wanted to put him on here anyway because there's obviously a need at safety, and he's one of the best watchers in the NFL. So I have to put him on here, but there's just no way. So very unrealistic to put him on here. Well, this is the last safety I put on here is Xavier McKinney. Now, he is kind of going to fly under the radar because the Giants haven't had a lot of success lately, but on defense they have, and this is another guy that obviously has connections to Anthony Weaver with the Wink Martindale connection. That is someone who Weaver learned under for a long time. Obviously, Xavier McKinney, who just played in that system, and can run that system at a high level. Not only that, but he could fix the Dolphins' slot cornerback position issue. I think if they wanted to move him to the slot corner role, he could easily transition to that position and play very well because I think his coverage ability is great. So that fixes probably a bigger hole, which is Kader Kohou, who had one of the worst seasons a Dolphins corner has ever had last season. So I really love what McKinney can bring to the team, and I think he could really fill a lot of issues because the Dolphins could, if they wanted to, theoretically, I think they could get Geno Stone and McKinney. I don't think their markets are going to be that big. Maybe Geno Stone is because the defense had more success, but I think McKinney you could get on a cheaper deal, and that those two could really improve the Dolphins' pass defense and like drastically if they were able to get both of those guys. And it would be probably the best secondary in the NFL if they could get a deal like that done. Love McKinney though, and is a very realistic name to be on here. I think the Dolphins could easily get him. Wouldn't cost too much, and obviously they got a lot of players they have to pay. So it probably would be more of I don't want to call him like a mid-tier or second-tier free agent. He's probably viewed that way, but I think he's a very talented player still, in my opinion. This next guy could possibly be a Dolphin. Obviously, this next guy has Anthony Weaver connections as well. Is Patrick Queen, middle linebacker from the Baltimore Ravens. Now, here's the thing about this. Probably going to be a Raven still, or he'll play somewhere else. He's gonna cost a lot, but this is a position the Dolphins need. They have to put better in the middle of the field. If you look at the stats against Josh Allen and the Bills, and that's who we have to beat to win this division, all of his completions are over the middle. And the Dolphins' defense is just giving up way too many yards, whether it's from the slot cornerback position or the middle linebacker position. They're giving up too many yards in the middle of the field. So they have to fix that this offseason as well as they can. And Patrick Queen, who is very unrealistic. I don't think the Dolphins could afford him necessarily. Maybe they could somehow get a deal like that done for whatever. But obviously Anthony Weaver connections is obvious. He coached him in Baltimore. He was a run defense game coordinator for Baltimore. So those two obviously have a connection. And great athlete, great cover guy. Not the best, I would say, in the class at defending the run, but he's great athlete, can cover, and that's what the Dolphins don't have. And he can honestly, dude, he can cover some slot receivers in the NFL. That's how freakish athletic Patrick Queen is. And his feel for the game has kind of been the knock on him. His instincts, kind of plays too fast. That's what people have said about him. But he's developed, and it's such a weird thing to say about another man, he's developed into a great player and would be a great pickup for the Dolphins if they were able to get him. But it's a little bit more unrealistic. This next guy also plays middle linebacker, and he's one of my favorite players in the NFL. I think he's actually better than Patrick Queen, but he's not viewed that way, which is good. And that's Frankie Louvu from the Carolina Panthers. This guy is everything the Dolphins need in one linebacker. When we talk about the Fred Warners of the world, who are 3-down, great players, Frankie Louvu, I think, is in that category. He's a phenomenal run defender, great pass rusher, like a really, really good pass rusher. And he's a very good, savvy coverage guy. Is he the best in man-to-man coverage? Is he going to beat out Patrick Queen in that category? No. Is he very good in zone coverage? He's phenomenal in zone coverage. And, I think would help this defense a lot in every category, whether it's run defense or pass defense, and even rushing the passer. I think Frank can affect the game in so many different ways, and he's one of the few linebackers in the National Football League that can play 3 downs at a high level, and I think that he would be a phenomenal pickup if the Miami Dolphins were able to get him. And he's not viewed as a top-of-the-market free agent, which is good. And that would be, him and Kyle Duggar would be like, if I had to press a button right now, I think those two it would be either one of the two, because I think they're so good. So yeah, Frankie Louvu, realistic name, and could definitely, I think, would be an awesome Miami Dolphin. This next guy plays slot corner. He's one of the, used to be, still probably is. I don't really know what his market is necessarily. He actually did have a really good season last year, and that's cornerback Kenny Moore. He could probably play safety, but he's a really probably top 3, maybe the best. I would really have to think about that. Slot corners aren't on the mind right now, but I think Kenny Moore is definitely in the upper echelon when it comes to defending the middle of the field, and I just talked about how the Dolphins are awful at doing that, especially against the Buffalo Bills, and getting someone like Kenny Moore would definitely fill that hole, and we wouldn't have to worry about that anymore. So, yeah, Kenny Moore, a realistic name, doesn't seem like his market's too high, and a very good veteran player the Dolphins could pick up, who could up the turnovers and help us beat the Buffalo Bills. Mekhi Becton is the next guy I have on this list. Obviously, everybody knows him. He obviously was the high-profile draft pick from the New York Jets. I can't even remember how high they picked him. Obviously, out of Louisville. He's only 24 years old. He came into the league at 20. This guy is obviously his grading and everything was not good last year. He was a part of a very bad offensive line. I honestly don't think he was necessarily an issue. And with our coaching, he's so talented and could play a guard if we really needed him to. I think the idea of it the ceiling on this signing is very high. And we've seen players like this like come through free agency and go somewhere else and have big careers. And he's such a young player that's so talented that I think if he was under our offense, I think it could become something pretty special. And if he could play guard, and I really want to know what his market's going to be, because if it is cheap, then it's an easy signing, and the Dolphins absolutely should do it. Like I said, the upside is just too great not to have him on this list, and he would help solidify the offensive line for Tua, and hopefully would elevate his game even more, because that's what Tua needs is a better offensive line. And the only thing is like, yeah, he's got a lot of upside, but an issue that we've had is staying healthy on the offensive line. So that's kind of a problem with him. But so there's definitely drawbacks. It's not the perfect name on the list, but low market and definitely could become a very good player still in the National Football League. These next names are luxury. Now, I want to say this before we move on. I looked at the tight ends. There was nobody in that class that I would remotely consider. The best name was Dalton Schultz and Dawson Knox, and I just could care less about either one of the two. So I didn't put them on here. I don't like them as players necessarily, and I think that, if you look, and I know Dolphins fans are like, oh, Dawson Knox, this, it just, you know what? It just shows you how bad our middle of the field and how we just let everybody do whatever the heck they want, especially when we play the Bills in the middle of the field. Because if you actually look at Dawson Knox's body of work, it's really bad. So yeah, I'm off that. So these next two names are receivers. I've talked about it a lot. I think the Dolphins need a third option in the passing game. And the free agent class for receivers is very top heavy, and obviously the Dolphins view that as a need for the team. And I think the Dolphins need to get size on this team and throw in a different type of a receiver. So the next person on this list is Noah Brown. Had some really good games last year, and I think has a lot of potential to play in the slot, which is why he's on this list. And I think he's a really nice fit in the system and the scheme. His market it won't be big, so it's definitely an affordable player. And I thought, bigger receiver can make plays in the middle of the football field, and he's a good run after the catch guy too, which is another reason he's on this list. I honestly don't know his exact height, but a younger player who has upside, who can come in, and he's much more talented than any third guy that we've had here. I mean, Cedric Wilson, how many yards did Noah Brown have last year? He only had 567 yards, which is actually way more than any of our slot receivers had. Sorry, guys. But, dropped my remote, but, how tall is he, dude? See, now I'm starting to get mixed up. 6'2". So, 6'2", good after the catch, physical, kind of hard to tackle. Similar to like a Juwan Jennings, I guess you could say. Definitely not as good, but in my opinion at least. Juwan Jennings would be perfect. If we could get someone like Juwan Jennings, that would be perfect. But Noah Brown I put on. The receiver market is just so bad that I was like, who else? It's like Noah Brown has got some upside, so I put him on here. Has bounced around the league a little bit, and we could kind of, all right, let's bring him in camp. Let's see what he can do. Not overly. It would be like it's an okay signing. Gabe Davis is the next guy. Now everybody in this, who's a Dolphins fan hates Gabe Davis. I also hate Gabe Davis, but not because he's not a good player. I think Gabe is a good player, would be a phenomenal third option on any team, and I think that's kind of what he is. I think he is a third option, and one of the best things that he does is run block. He's one of the best run blocking receivers in the NFL. Can he play in this slot? Yes, he can. Easily could. And we could easily transition him there. He's a very big, and what does Mike McDaniel love more than anything else? Speed. He's really, really fast. and could really help the red zone offense. The only reason I literally was very close to not putting him on this list is because it's very unrealistic that this would ever happen, because he is a top of the market free agent, and I think a lot of teams are going to want to have him, but he would be a perfect Dolphin, because he's perfect. He fits everything the team needs. He's a very good third option. Very good third option. He can play in the slot if we needed him to. He can really help. He can also play on the outside. We all know that's his primary position. And he can help in the red zone because we need bigger, talented players that can go up and get a ball. And he can help on the outside too. We can move Waddle inside more. We could even move Tyreek Hill inside more if we wanted to. And Gabe Davis could do some different things as the outside receiver. So, and he's a phenomenal run blocker. I think, and he's a really good route runner. So I think all of those things, it's like, okay, Gabe Davis is a no-brainer. Is it realistic? No, absolutely not. Is he a Mike McDaniel? Does he fit the scheme? Yes, I think he's the type of receiver that they would like, and maybe they could lure him away from the Bills. I don't know, but I think he's a good player and could really thrive in this offense. I only have 2 more names, and I looked at every need that the team had in free agency. Kirk Cousins did not make this list because I think that's the dumbest thing ever. Why would you not just keep Tua at that point, in my opinion? I guess you should just bring Kirk Cousins up because I know a lot of people have talked about it. The reason Kirk Cousins is not on this list is because, one, I think Tua is a better player than Kirk Cousins, and everybody's going to freak out when I say that. I think he's a better player. I think that he has the potential definitely to be a better player. He has not had some of the supporting cast that Kirk Cousins has had throughout his entire career. When you think about who's had better offensive lines throughout their career, it's not even close who's had some of the better offensive lines. If Kirk Cousins was the Dolphins quarterback when Brian Flores was here, the record, and I'm talking about, like, if you do, I guess it's not fair to say early Kirk Cousins, because early Kirk Cousins was way worse than early Tua. So, I guess it's not a fair comparison. But, I don't know. I just like Tua better as a player than Kirk Cousins, in my opinion. I think he's a better player. So, that's the reason I didn't have him on this list. I still think Tua can be a great player in the NFL. The thing that I said about the Penix thing is, like, yeah, it wouldn't be the worst pick the Dolphins have ever made, which is true. It just wouldn't. I mean, that's a fact. So, I still believe in Tua. It's not like I want to get rid of him. I'm not one of those people. And I definitely don't want to go get Justin. I love Justin Fields. He's very talented. But it's not, I wouldn't give up Tua for that. Tua still has upside. He's only 25. And he still has a lot of upside as a player. He's never really played with a team that can move people on the line of scrimmage on a consistent basis, which a lot of these other quarterbacks have. It would be nice to get him that. And it would be nice to get him a third option receiver. And whether you like it or not, if you look at his win-loss record, I'm taking not even with Mike McDaniel, I'm talking about with Brian Flores, which is very impressive. Look at his home record ever since he became a Dolphin. These are things that you can't overlook, people. Like, these are very positive things. He won the pass. He's the reigning passing yards champ. I don't even know how the heck you would frame that. The passing title, or whatever the heck however you want to frame it. So there's a lot of things. He's a Pro Bowler this year. So there's a lot of positives in the conversation for MVP voting. I could go on and on and on. So that's the reason Kirk Cousins is on this list. Anyway, getting to the last 2 names on this list. This is not gonna happen. But these 2 players would help, and there's no reason the Dolphins should even target them because they have Raheem Mostert and Devon A-Chain. But I still love these 2, and I think they're worth mentioning. Tony Pollard, who played receiver at Memphis before he came into the NFL, could be that third option as a receiver. Would actually be better at it than Noah Brown. A lot of different things Mike McDaniel could do with Tony Pollard, and he's a great playmaker. So maybe that would be our backfield for the next 15 years is Tony Pollard and Devon, not 15, that's a ridiculous number, but Tony Pollard and Devon A-Chain. And one thing I want to say before we move on, A-Chain is always going to need a running mate because of he's not a big guy. He's not a big running back. So that's something that he's always kind of need, which there's nothing wrong with that. And but again, thinking about the market with running backs, is there lower? And Tony didn't have a good year in a lot of people's eyes last year. So maybe they could swing a deal with that. Because, first of all, Tony Pollard in this offense would be an all-pro player. Saquon Barkley is the last name. The reason I put him on here, obviously, his market is crazy. The name alone is insane. Saquon is a phenomenal athlete who can do a lot of different things. He's not just a running back. Just same thing with Tony Pollard. He also is a phenomenal pass receiving running back. And, we think about players in West Coast offenses that were great. When you think about running backs, and I think the first name, there's two names that come to my mind, is Roger Craig. Tony Nathan you could throw in there. It wasn't the West Coast, though. But he was a great receiving running back. And the two West Coast guys that I think of is Marshall Faulk and Roger Craig. And that's that's what Saquon, who's more talented than those two physically, could bring to the team. And not only that, but he's a player, and there's not many in the NFL that can do this. I'm sorry, I keep clicking this pen. There's not many in the NFL that can do this, which is, if there's nothing there, can you make something happen? And Saquon is one of those players, which is very rare that those players are available, and I don't think the Dolphins can afford someone like this, and it's not a position of need necessarily, because it does fill a need, which is, hey, this team doesn't have a third option at all. Is Raheem Mostert a third option? Is Devon A-Chain a third option? Yeah, I would say A-Chain is 1,000% a third option. But I'm talking about the throwing the football, not running the football. Which I guess that would make we would have four options on offense in a way. But I'm specifically talking about the passing game. Devon A-Chain is absolutely a third option, and he's going to be a superstar for the rest of his career if he stays healthy. I mean, the man's way better than I ever thought he would be. So that's why this is unrealistic, but and I'm sure everybody already knew that. But I had to put him on here because just the thought of him alone in the scheme and the system, with all the screens that we throw and how creative we could get with him, because we're not very good at screens. We're one of the worst teams in the NFL at screens. He could help out with that, and he could be a very good third down receiver as well. So that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed. That's my list. Kyle Duggar, Geno Stone, Antoine Winfield. You know what? I'm just going to name the realistic ones. These are the realistic names that I think the Dolphins should target. Kyle Duggar, Geno Stone, Frankie Louvu, Xavier McKinney, Mekhi Becton. I'm going to kind of say Gabe Davis is a realistic guy. I think he kind of is. And who else did I miss? I don't think Winfield is. Queen, maybe. But I think out of all of the players that we've talked about here, Geno Stone is probably going to be a Dolphin, if I had to guess. Sorry, just drop that. Who I would rather have Kyle Duggar. Honestly, would rather have McKinney as well. But it's definitely an upgrade over Deshaun Elliott, and he knows the system. So I just have a feeling that he's definitely going to be a Dolphin just for all the reasons I said. So that's it. It was fun talking about these players. If we can get one of these guys, I think it would significantly help the team. And we have to get better in the middle of the field on defense. We have to replace those two players. It's only two players. The Dolphins, mind you, have their pass rushers under contract. They just need to get Christian Wilkins back. And if they can fill the middle, if they can help the middle of the field in any way possible, any of those players that I mentioned will do that. Especially Kyle Duggar, who can also play middle linebacker if you needed him to. And Frankie Louvu would be just a phenomenal pickup for the Dolphins. Got to throw Mekhi Becton in there. Like I said, more definitely like a high upside. And who knows what can happen with something like that. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.